In this part, we will go through an example of a stakeholder positioning map. Here, we will use the Reflex technology developed at TNO. Reflex is a complex software tool that can be used in the energy market. It's an optimization algorithm that can be used to balance the supply and demand of electricity while avoiding grid congestion. That is, preventing overload of the electricity grid to a point that it will fail. Due to the complex nature of the energy market, it is however not in commercial use and currently only used in research projects of TNO. The reason for this will become apparent in this video. Also, a small TNO disclaimer: the reality behind the Reflex tool is very complicated, which does not contribute to the educational purpose of this video, hence what we tell you here is a simplified version. Let's start with a homeowner. And keep in mind, this would be a future product, so this product does not exist yet. The homeowner buys an electrical vehicle. Soon he realizes that he will also need a charging station to acquire that too. The charging station is attached to the electricity grid and can charge the car when the owner connects the vehicle. Now, you've probably heard that with the rise of electric vehicles, solar panels, heat pumps and more, the stress on the electricity grid is increasing. It will increase to a point where it will lead to grid congestion, so we'll need a system to counteract this issue. Allowing for more trading of demand-side flexibility within the electricity system can be such a solution. This means that when demand is high, electricity prices for charging your car are also high. Conversely, when demand is low and there is a surplus of electricity supply, prices are low or maybe even negative, allowing you to save money by charging your car at that time. However, the trading itself can also lead to congestion, and this is where Reflex really has its strong point. It uses the electrical flexibility of a device, its battery, to charge it as cheap as possible while preventing congestion of the electrical grid at the same time. The opposite is also possible. Discharging your battery on peak demands can earn you money as well. Putting your car battery on the energy market in order to balance the load on the grid is called providing flex. Now, in order to make this work, you require some kind of integrator with various settings. The one you're already familiar with is charge when connected. A new setting, only charge when energy is cheap, and a third setting, provide flex, which allows you to earn some money with your battery. The integrator needs to connect to a central hub called an aggregator. Jetlix is an example of a company that could provide this service. However, Jetlix does not have the Reflex technology and would thus rely on TNO for licensing. Jetlix also depends on two other parties. First, the grid operator that carries the responsibility for the electricity grid, such as Stedin and Alliander, a distribution system operator. And second, the energy suppliers such as Eneco, Nuon and Green Choice. Finally, we add the energy market, and this completes the supply chain. Now, we can go to step 2 by adding the regulatory stakeholders. One important regulatory actor is the ACM, that is the Authority for Consumers and Market. In this picture, all parties are marked that have to comply with ACM. In turn, ACM stands under the supervision of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. That entity has to deal with a very important question which needs to be addressed first. Which of these stakeholders determines when the homeowner may procure from or supply to the grid? In other words, when the homeowner sets the button to provide flex, who decides when and if the car will supply or withdraw electricity from the grid? As long as that regulatory question is not answered, the Reflex tool in this setting has no commercial future, even though it's vital to the future stability of the electricity grid. In the last step, we check for business essentials. Let's first check the value capture. As you can see in this example, we've created this map from the perspective of TNO, where TNO is the knowledge provider. We assume here that Jetlix would be interested in a license and capable of introducing this technology into the market. Hence, Jetlix would be paying TNO for the license. Obviously, you need to map this from your perspective. This basically also answers the innovation gap part of the map, which in this case would be the same party, Jetlix. Note that if Jetlix or any other party would not be willing to license and commercialize this, you would have a literal gap in the supply chain. This would mean that a new entity is required, usually a startup, that is willing to introduce this into the market. However, if an existing party is willing and capable of getting this technology into the market, it might be unwise to do so in the form of a new entity. This is because the risks associated with a new entity are higher. Finally, we map the value add. That is, who would gain from this technology. We've started with the homeowner as beneficiary of this tech, who would be allowed to trade on the electricity market or at least charge when it's cheap. In addition, Jetlix themselves will profit from this new service. The grid operator will profit too, as it will better balance the workload of the grid, which would require less investments in the grid for upgrades. And with the grid operator, obviously the state of the Netherlands will profit as well, as they are the ones who finance those upgrades. A bit less obvious are the energy suppliers. However, they too profit from this because it's not so easy to quickly limit the output when demand suddenly decreases. By better balancing the grid, it's easier and thus cheaper for them to deliver energy to the market. And with that, we have the picture complete. The complete map immediately provides some important insights. First of all, the aggregator apparently plays an important role in the supply chain. This is where the value capture, one of the value adds, and the innovation gap is located. Second, there are several parties that will gain from the Reflex software. It might be possible to capture that value as well. But it's indirect and therefore less straightforward. And finally, it clarifies that you have to deal with those regulatory issues. Those will seriously impact your ability to pivot in this market and therefore add to the risk of market entry. That concludes this video on stakeholder positioning map. We hope that you have learned from this talk and enjoyed this tech transfer video. See you in the next one.